So I'm Virginia Juliano. I know a lot of you, and we're talking today about how lockdown has changed TV viewing and some ways to make the most of it. And we only have about 20 minutes, so it's kind of going to be top line. And if there are additional questions, I'd be happy to answer. We're going to talk today about how the recent lockdowns have increased our time in front of the television. And we are now, we have so many more choices, and we're going to talk about some of the latest streaming trends, the changing viewer behaviors that we've seen, and some tips on how to make the most of your entertainment options these days. A little bit, for those of you who don't know me, I was at Showtime Networks for 10 years. I launched Cobblecord, which is a website and app that's free that helps people cobble together personalized streaming bundles. It is not a streaming service, but we help people figure out which streaming services they should utilize. It's a very simple and easy process by design, and it's been patented. We've had some really good press, and recently some really outstanding awards, including being named Most Visionary Company in Fairfield County by the Fairfield County Business Journal. And I was happy to be named a Woman in Innovation finalist by the Connecticut Technology Council. So getting into things, the streaming trends that we've been seeing is obviously people are home, people are not able to really do much other than watch television, and that has spawned a dramatic increase in streaming. And we've seen it, on both the free and the paid services. However, what is being talked about these days is there going to be a bit of a backlash? Number one, are people just sick of streaming and it's summer out, and are people wanting to get more, get outside a little bit? So are we going to see a dip in usage? I think we've started to see that, but the data has not come in completely. The other thing is that, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a second, but there's a lot of people who came on board to these services. They're doing free trials, and there probably is going to be a bit of attrition, meaning that people are not going to necessarily stay with all of these streaming services that they've sampled. What we have seen, though, is definitely an uptick in cord cutting for various reasons. Obviously, with the pandemic, a lot of people have lost their jobs or have fear of losing their jobs, so they're looking to save money. And there have been people who have been thinking about cutting the cord for a while, and this is like pushing them over the edge. The other interesting trend that we've been seeing, and it's happened sort of by default, is password sharing crackdowns. What I mean by that is that a lot of people are sharing their passwords amongst their friends and family for streaming services. Well, that is fine when all of these people are not streaming at the same time, but when everyone's using the same service at the same time, a lot of these services have a cap and on the amount of simultaneous streams. So what's happening is we're seeing people who are paying for their service, their Netflix, for instance, and they can't get in because they have like 5 other relatives who are on at the same time. So it's created an interesting scenario. During this time period, interestingly enough, there's been some new service launches, including the likes of HBO Max, Quibi, which is, so HBO Max is like HBO but on steroids, so it's got more stuff. Quibi, which is tailored for the mobile space and the mobile device, and Peacock, which is from NBC, and that just launched last week. So there has been some movement in the space in terms of new launches, so there's even more choice out there. There's a debate, whether we still need more streaming services. I say the more the merrier. It's more about, people having as much choice as possible. There is some question on, how many of these streaming services are going to be able to survive from a, business standpoint. Which leads us to the price increases. So you've seen some of these skinnier bundles like YouTube TV, Fubo TV, needing to raise their price to make their margins, which are very, very razor thin, a little bit more attractive, and to supplement that they're adding more content. One of the biggest things though to mention is the challenges on the content development side. There's obviously been, because of COVID, a lot of shooting and production delays. So there's the pipeline of content has dried up a bit for many of these streaming services. So this is a major challenge. What you have seen as a result of that are a couple of things. Sometimes streaming services or channels are splitting up seasons. So they're saying, okay, we would normally have a 16 or 12 episode season. We're splitting that up into 2 so that they can have something to release later in the year. Also, library content, meaning older movies, older television shows, becoming much more front and center in the in promoting on services. So it's becoming more important. We've also seen a migration into, putting more resources in the animation space, since that is not really affected by, social distancing and shooting, problems with shooting and stuff like that. So animation, you're going to see probably an uptick in that kind of content and money pushed towards that. Many releases, big movies, are being pushed to next year, but then some of them are deciding to go with a streaming premiere. So streaming only premiere, or just going out in the theaters, 1 or 2 theaters where it's, legally possible. But, these entertainment companies are running numbers constantly to see, the way that they can maximize the value of these assets that they have, and try to make some money back on what they've invested. Any questions so far? Oh, I see we have a note, a lot of interest in drive-in movie theaters. Yes, that is an interesting little development. We'll see if it really has legs. I think it's a bit of a novelty, but I think it's a great little stopgap there. But I'm bullish on, them collapsing the theatrical windows and doing, changing the sort of economics to be more of a direct to streaming sort of process. That's what I'm hoping for. And I've been, I actually think John Stankey, who's the CEO of AT&T, just mentioned something like that this morning, that he thinks it's going to lean in that direction. So. Okay, jumping into changing viewer behaviors, which is an offshoot of what we were just talking about, which is the belt tightening. So everyone is being, much more conscious of what they're spending, and taking a real look at what they're spending, particularly on television. Everyone hates their cable company. Everyone hates that bill that comes, once a month, but never gets around to actually cord cutting. But I think people are becoming much more serious and taking a much closer look at their spending habits. They're also taking a look at all of these, sneaky charges on their credit cards that they forget about when things are good, and they say, should I really be, paying for this service on a monthly basis when I really haven't watched anything on it in a while? So definitely belt tightening is making the streaming world and the television world much more competitive. It's interesting, there's also an increased importance of family programming. A lot of people are home together, different age groups. It could create a great opportunity for bonding and watching together. Like for instance, Disney Plus and Hamilton was a great way for families to sort of come together and watch something together. And it could also create some, awkward moments on programming that is not quite so family friendly. So there's been an increased, resurgence in family programming, and there's a lot of streaming services that cater to this. So a lot of people are not necessarily aware of them. There's obviously Disney Plus, HBO Max has Sesame Street programming now. Netflix and Amazon Prime have really done a good job at trying to supplement with family-friendly programming. And then there are other services that are tailored specifically for family-friendly programming. One is called Friendly, FRNDLY, and I think it's about $6 a month. And it's definitely, they program it so that anybody could be watching it together, and there are no awkward moments on any of their programming. And there are some like Pure Flicks, which are more faith-based, family friendly based, and Dove Channel and stuff like Food Network Kitchen, which is a streaming service that is about cooking and chopped, and actually it includes boxes of food that you can have delivered, and you can do recipes together. So these interesting things have been coming up. And obviously everyone is talking about the sports crisis, that there's no sports. There hasn't been any sports, it's coming back. But a lot of people have been lost. But the good news is that it's forcing them to try out other streaming services, and esports and gaming related services are seeing some interest as well. So the likes of Twitch, the likes of DAZN, they've been creative with their programming. So some tips on how to survive this new era of television. I would say, whether you've cut the cord or not, this is a great time to take advantage of. There's a lot of free options out there, free streaming services. Just a few of them include Pluto TV, Tubi TV, Crackle, Vudu, Popcorn Flicks. There's a lot of them, and take advantage of the free trials on the ones that are not free. They're available. You just have to remember to cancel if you don't want to stick around, but there's so many options. This is the perfect time to give them a try. You might want to give a digital antenna a try to get access to your local channel, over-the-air channels. So that will allow you to view your local channels without paying for them at all, just through the air. Now, there's reception issues between different geographic locations, so it's not a given, but there are resources on Cobblecord.com, free resources to check out to see if your geography, what channels are visible in your geography. The other thing is it's a mindset shift. Is that you need to think about, it's not set it and forget it anymore. A lot of us, especially in the older generations, are used to cable and used to being sort of beholden to that cable bundle and not having any options. Now we have a situation where it's the opposite problem. There's too many options, right? So some people are frozen and they just stick with cable, but it's a mind shift about, you have control, you can sort of take this on, it's not that hard, and actually Cobblecord is building out features to help people take this on and be more proactive in managing their streaming services on an ongoing basis. Our recommendation is you should be looking at your mix every month, or at the very least quarterly. It's sort of like looking at your stock portfolio, and you have to kind of rebalance it every so often because things change. You know, your viewing habits change. You have different seasons are happening in terms of, you know, the children are either home more or out more, vacations. You don't have to have everything every month of the year. Even sports, for instance, you know, not as important during certain seasons. And if you're into a particular sport, you can turn things on and off. So once again, cobblecord.com offers a lot of resources and information, and it's totally free. So I see that we have some questions. Okay. So let me read off what the two questions that came in right off the bat. Do you have to worry about being spammed if you go free? No, a lot of these streaming services are not spamming you. You will see advertising. They are ad supported. That's how they make their money. That's how they stay in business. So it's very similar to the old broadcast model, but I would not say that you would be spammed necessarily. Are you seeing a lot of annual discount pricing, or the service is usually month to month? That's from Salil. Yes, that's a really good question. Many of these services are trying to lock you in for a year and offering discounts, which is a great thing for you as a consumer, and also for them, because then they can have your business for a longer period of time. Hey, if it works out and that's a service that you think you would take advantage of for the full year, and it would be a good sort of investment, maybe multiple people in your household would utilize it, doesn't hurt to do that. You know, a lot of people stick with one or two streaming services for the whole year, and then they have a couple, 3 or 4, that they pop in and out of, depending on, you know, what their interests are at the time, what their focus is, what their family situation is, what their economic situation is. So all of these things factor into people figuring out their streaming mix on an ongoing basis. Seeing another question, and Felicia, maybe we can unmute people in case they want to have some questions.
Sure, you can unmute yourselves, or if you want, I'm happy to unmute you.
One question about a digital antenna. What is the digital antenna? It is an antenna that you plug into the back of your television, and it could be placed either by your window, it could be placed in the attic. They can be bought, you know, on Amazon or whatnot. They're very reasonable. Let's say between, you know, $35 to, you know, $100, depending on the quality. And it will pick up, it depends on, once again, it depends on where you live, exactly like what is in your, you have a big tree that's blocking the antenna waves or whatever, or you're living in a valley, it won't be as easy. So every single address is going to capture different over the air, you know, signals, but it could be worthwhile if you are very interested in keeping your local channels. And a lot of people, particularly older people, are interested in keeping local news. And, you know, it is a big importance for local sports. So.